Hello and welcome to Girl Awakening YouTube. I'm Jo Hendy.
And I'm Amanda Parker. Enjoy this episode of Girl Awakening in all of its vulnerable sacredness.
And remember to subscribe and share. So I'm not sure whether you had a chance to read the original email, but our podcast is really fresh and really new and kind of came through spirit like September last year with the two of us wanting to kind of hear about other women's journeys along the road to awakening. And we've met some incredible women. Like there's so many like doing incredible things very quietly behind the scenes.
And in their own lane, basically, staying in their own lane, but with amazing communities that they're creating as well, which is very exciting.
Which I know you are as well. And I know that your awakening journey will resonate with so many of our listeners. And we just went, let's try and get Jem.
Oh, thank you. I'm super honoured to be here. I love the work that you're doing and what you're getting out there and what you're putting out there for people. And it creates such a support network, doesn't it? You know, for people to feel like there's community and they're not alone in these things and they've got some reference points and some tools and all of the things. So it's such important work. Thank you for doing it.
Oh, you're welcome. But that's absolutely 100% of the community and the support. Those two words have such a powerful resonancy at this time, like they always have, but and more so now. So it feels a great privilege to be a part of that expansion process. And
where are you lovely ladies? You're in Brisbane?
No, we're on the Gold Coast.
Oh, you're in Goldie, just up the road.
Okay.
Just up the road.
So I've actually just taken a bit from your website just around yourself. Are you okay for me to read this as almost like your intro into the podcast?
Yeah, I think so. We've written it for a while, but I'm sure it's still the same.
Yeah, it's basically the parts that I just feel resonate, kind of, because what you're doing is so beautiful and so spot on. And weirdly enough, I'm reading through not weirdly enough, actually, everything's divine. We had the most amazing lady on yesterday, and I'm reading through your bio and I'm like, oh my goodness, do these ladies know each other? Because like where you're both kind of at is so similar. Not at, but the reading's very similar. Yeah, but her background's more the Hawaiian, well, what would you call it? I called her an Hawaiian princess because she literally looked like an Hawaiian princess, and she's not. She's American and Chinese, but incredible woman.
But working in the light, like it's a divinity, that that whole that strength of bringing through the divine energy, the God energy, alignment with that truth and spirit. And you're what Jo's saying, like you have that, I'll say power, and I don't mean it in a layering way, but that full energy force that comes through with the conviction that you have with what you're doing really creates such a powerful energy around you that people just get drawn to. Are you finding that in yourself?
Thank you so much for recognizing or acknowledging that. It's very beautiful, and I feel like for me, I think the more deeply I commune with the natural world, the more I'm able to get out of the way. And that's really what it is. I'm really aware that a lot of the things that we share and a lot of the stuff that comes through, it's kind of recycled, right? Like it's the same thing over and over again. But the more deeply we connect to ourselves, to our spirit, especially through the portal of nature, the more original things can be, because they arise from a deep place within, a deep wisdom. I truly believe that we are all our own greatest healers, and we're all our own greatest wisdom keepers if we just get still long enough to listen, to really drop in and to listen. And so if that comes through, or when that comes through, I don't know if I would use, that kind of word channeling. It's sort of thrown around a lot, isn't it? Channeling this or channeling that. And what is it really? I think there's only one thing to channel, and that is the source energy. Everything else is just an ambassador of that one. I feel like there's really only one truth. And when we open ourselves for that to come through, then it has that very powerful feeling, like a wave, isn't it? It's like a wave of divine grace or something that comes through. And we all get in those places, don't we? And sometimes we hang out in there longer than others, but yeah, for sure. I think when we open that and just allow it to come through and get out of the way, meaning get the mind out of the way a little bit, and just trust in our trust in our hearts and trust in our team, actually.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not going to read that. I'm going to add that later.
Yeah. Well, speaking
of, we can't stop the flow right now.
No. Well, yeah, we're basically kind of diving straight in now. So we're going to add the introduction. Like Jo's got some, content from your website, referring back to the Andes and the pre-Inca times, which she had great resonancy through, and so it's kind of really just going to lead us into, because we've got quite a lot of feeling around just this time with you this morning. So the strongest feeling is just to dive in and ask you the question, Jem, how did your awakening begin?
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, to be honest, I think I was already remembering when I was a kid, as many of us are. That came with a lot of fear, because I was really able to perceive beyond our worlds, beyond the physical 3D world that we see in front of our eyes and that we're taught is real. My mum still laughs now at how many hours I would spend in the garage talking to the dwarves, apparently.
Love that.
With all of this wisdom, and she'd be like, whoa, where did that come from? But, so I would go in and tell her, and when I was around about 18, I started becoming more interested in sort of out-of-body experiences and astral traveling. I think I read the Celestine Prophecies when I was 18, actually.
Wasn't that a powerful book?
Yeah.
So it's such an activator, that one. Yeah.
Wow, it really was. And I probably should read it again, because, I remember it so clearly, like it was yesterday, but I'm sure at 18, I was getting it. I remember, I would sit there like focusing on reading the energy around trees, or being able to...
Didn't we all?
We all, right?
It brought their plants alive, didn't it? Yeah.
The thing is that it's so true. It's such a beautifully written, and there's the second one, which is called The Secrets of Shambhala, or Shambhala. I don't know if you've read that one too. This one is actually really about where we're at right now, by the same author. So that one I read years later, but I realized that he's talking about, this time that we're in right now. Anyway, so, I floated through my early 20s, and I probably took some things and did some things to misguidedly
expand that awareness.
Expand my awareness, where at the time I thought I was just going to a rave, but actually I was spending the whole night speaking with beings from other dimensions. And absolutely no idea what I was doing, just knew that it was fun.
Yeah.
And and then wondering why I felt so rotten afterwards. And I think that's part of the problem, actually. That's one of the things I think with kids in those experimental stages, is they don't really understand what they're opening themselves up to, because you are opening yourselves up to many different dimensions and many different energies. And I one of the things I wanted to do, this is just off the track for a minute, is I do this Sacred Chocolate facilitator training. I wanted to do the same thing for DJs, because, you look at these big parties, you've got thousands of kids, and the DJ is like the god, and the dance floor is like the temple. Yeah. And I was like, God, imagine if these guys, they wouldn't even have to do anything. They just knew how to set that space as a portal of transformation, so that while these kids were dancing stuff, it would be transformed. They would call in all of the guardians so that the space was fully sealed up and protected, and they'd call for a minute's silence before they started to dance. So the kids they're still going to go and do what they're going to do, you know, they're going to do this and that and take the things, but at least it's a space of powerful transformation, you know.
And safe space, like from, you know, the entities, the beings, energy forces, so it's kind of things that, just come in rampantly.
Yeah.
That you just really connect with that vision. That's powerful.
We've all been there. I think, you know, if we're here sharing about this, or if anyone's watching, it's because we're empathic souls, right? We're sensitive, and so there's only more and more sensitives being born, and I feel like that that's for a purpose and a reason too, because that's how the planet will evolve and change. If you're sensitive and you feel how deeply someone else feels, then you're much less likely to start a war or to create conflict, right? Because you're so in tune with everything and everyone. Anyway, digressing. So then in my mid-20s, I was really starting to open and see things and understand things in a different way. I naturally was not wanting to drink alcohol, you know, in that time when you're sort of really social and all the things. And I was spending a lot of time internally. I started working with breath work right back then. I mean, that's now 35, 45, that's now 23, 24 years ago. And I came across my first teacher, mentor, who still is to this day, a woman called Barbara Stone. She's now close to 80. And I started working with her, and I also began a practice of Vedic meditation, which they also call TM, Transcendental Meditation. And I went to town on this meditation. I started doing my 2 sits twice a day, and that just blew the cork. It was like everything that was waiting to come through and waiting to be remembered came, and it came in thick and fast. And, you know, I hear people using the term spiritual awakening, and I'd never really called it that before, but I realize now looking back for sure that's what was going on. And I had probably a good year and a half or more of these intense experiences that were like, I'm sure some of the listeners can relate to these. In my sleep, I was having beings showing up and standing at the end of my bed. There was 2 in particular, and they've stayed with me in different forms. In fact, people that can see energy, or if I ever have an aura photograph taken, you can see them standing on the side of me. And then we've got there's a little short guy, a little short stocky guy as well. They were standing at the end of my bed. Crazy stuff. I started channeling in a sort of the true sense of the word, where I could hear spirit rushing through me and very clear words and names. I started hearing vibrations in my ears. I started seeing these things that I still see now. I call them the little blue spaceships. I believe they're emissaries from the Pleiades. They show up whenever I need guidance or to tell me things. Sometimes they flash over people. So all of this stuff, and I'm going to the doctor. Can you check my ears? There's something going on in my ears. It sounded like it was like this. And what I realized, this was 2000. And then I realized years later, when I struck the first beat of my medicine drum that I made with my own hands, that the vibration of the drum was what I was hearing. And then when I heard my first hummingbird, when I was in 2011, I heard this, and I was like, oh my God, there's the sound. So I was hearing the vibration of these ancient traditions, which are the vibration of nature, of the cosmos, of the natural world. And it was really tough in some respects too, as much as it was invigorating and, you know, exciting. There was a lot of what you call like sleep paralysis kind of situations where I would, and wouldn't be able to move, but be very much conscious. I'd be literally seeing things, hearing things. Then I started to get bothered by beings of other dimensions, i.e. spirits that were trying to get my attention very physically by moving things around. You know, it was really kind of intense, poltergeist kind of stuff.
So this is in your 20s too. So you're this is all just new to you. This is all just, you've got your mentor, but is she explaining all these things to you, what's happening? Or are these just naturally occurring to you because you've now opened something up?
Yeah, they're naturally occurring, and thank goodness for Barb, because, you know, if things got a bit intense or overwhelming, I would check in and, you know, explain to her or share with her what was happening, and she was able to give it some context without ever putting her opinion, you know, like Barb's favorite saying, and I use it all the time now with my students as well, is take what resonates and throw the rest in the trash, you know, like let it be your own experience. And I think that's really important. So what I ended up doing with that, this was my really one of my first lessons as an adult in learning how to discern between energies and learning how to work and call in and connect and remember the truth, the highest frequencies of light, the highest frequencies of love, and that actually these other things, they're also, you know, I really believe that these, I just call them heavier energies rather than entities, that they're only able to come in and create any havoc if there's something in our vibrational field that offers them a match. It's like a magnet, you know. So if there's somewhere in your life you're in, or in that moment even, that you're in fear, that you're in doubt, you're in, you know, there's some kind of something that's coming up for you, then these energies can attach and can give you a bit of, you know, they can pester you because there's something in your vibrational field that is magnetizing them. So for me, the work is always, and I learned this back then, it's always to change your internal state, you know, work on strengthening and making your luminous field really resilient, you know, work on your fears, see where your doubts are. And in that moment, what I did was I drew, had no idea what I was doing, but I took a piece of paper and some paint and I just drew this kind of mandala. It wasn't pretty, it wasn't, you know, particularly artistic or anything, it was more symbolic. And this was kind of like for protection, I guess you would say, but it came from within me, you know. So I put that under my mattress, and it was phenomenal how the vibration of that calmed things down. And when these intense experiences would happen, I would call in that moment, Archangel Michael, now. You know, I got used to it, like, instead of, because the fear would come in because I wouldn't know what was happening, you know, as all of this was opening up, the fear would come in. And in that moment, I had two choices. I knew if I go into the fear, then this is when these things really materialize. If I go into my power, into my strength, and call on my team, which are just higher aspects of ourselves, these things will just disappear. So I started to learn. And you know, when I actually first started this process of learning how to work with energy in this way was when I was 2 days old, I reckon, because my mum and dad.
Clear recollection.
I came in, I chose it. I absolutely chose it, as we all do, before I came in, all preparing me for the work that I do now, I think. But when I was 2 days old, I was already on my mum's hip behind the bar of the public bar and we're not talking like a hipster pub. This is like a pretty, you know, it's a workers,
an Aussie pub.
An Aussie pub. My were publicans and my grandparents were publicans, so I grew up around some pretty intense, unconscious, heavy energies. And you know, children, and in the Andean tradition especially, they believe, and I really get this and I see it, it makes sense to me, that children up until the age of puberty, to the age of 13, part of their service, which they're not even conscious that they're doing, is to transform and to move their heavy energies in the processes of the people around them, of their parents, of their community. And from the first breath that we take in from when we're born, in that moment, we're in that split second of that, where we begin a process of taking in one of two energies, either heavy energy or light energy, you know, and we become really unconscious about what we're taking on. And then over time, we start to we believe that is ours, right? This is the story of the empath. You know, there's always a choice about what we're taking in, but because we're largely unconscious about what we're taking in, we take something in, it feels heavy in our body, it makes us feel, you know, whatever, depressed, down, heavy, tired, and then we look for something in our story and we attach it to that energy, and we do like all humans do and go, mine.
Yes.
Mine.
Hold it right here.
It's not yours. It never was yours in the first place. But we hold on to it for dear life, and then we make a story around it, then we loop on it, and 20 years later we're still working from this thing that was never even ours in the first place, which is quite ironic. So I think that's empowering to remember and to recognize.
Oh,
So
amazing. Yeah, because you're talking about being on your mum's hip at 2 days old while she's working. Like, how amazing is she just getting up and rocking back into work and going, yep, I'm back on duty as well, and my girl's coming with me, and she's safe because she's with me, and yeah,
exactly right. My mum is super resilient, but that's also been a big program for me to unwind as well, because she comes from that generation, I think, many of us with our mums, where they just kept going. They didn't know how to stop, didn't know how to self-care. They just there was no off button. And I think that's such a big it's a big pattern to break. And of course their mothers before that, same thing. They were
absolutely. So, I just want to jump back into your awakening. When you're 20, all this stuff, this amazing unraveling's happening for you. Were you in relationship with anyone then? Did you but just in the normal world, did you have a boyfriend? Were you working, or were you just literally going for it?
No, all of the above. I was actually in a very interesting world as well. Do you ladies know about my background at all?
Yeah. A little bit.
Okay.
Well, little. I met you before through Work Avenue kind of thing with naked treaties.
Yeah.
Oh, naked treaties. Okay. So here we go. I don't talk about this very much these days, but I'm just going to put it out, because it was
another lifetime.
Another lifetime. However, it was profound.
Yeah.
And I chose it. My soul chose it because it's exactly what it needed to shake, rattle, and roll so many parts of me, and to learn how to navigate this stuff while it was all going on.
Absolutely.
So I was working as a hair and makeup artist back then, and I was traveling all over the world doing awesome things, having lots of fun. And then I found myself on the first series of the very first ever reality TV show ever before anyone knew, and I didn't even know what it was. Called Big Brother.
Yes, I remember you. I remember you on that.
So
that
I was on
that for the world, wasn't it? That program was incredible.
Talk about putting yourself out there and giving yourself a challenge.
Yeah, well, the thing is we didn't know that. So no one knew anything about what this thing was. Somehow we kind of got talked into doing it. They didn't have, they didn't even have a crowd to film when we went in. We had to do this rent-a-crowd, where they stopped and make it look like there was people. And really, back in those times, we were just all really normal people and it was a bit of a social experiment, I think. But even back in there, I remember I was reading angel cards for people in the house there, and I came out to stacks of angel cards from Doreen Virtue and Hay House.
Oh, really no way! How beautiful!
But they did some pretty gnarly things in there, like they wouldn't let you meditate if you sat down to be still. They would, pull you out of that state. One of the biggest lessons that I learned from being, and this was all a part of the awakening process, one of the biggest lessons that I learned from being in that house was having the courage to be disliked, because I had that program big time. Still do. A lot of us do. Most of us do.
That's a big one, isn't it? Like even the change, even the shift, it's allowing yourself to sit in that, and doesn't matter what's happening out here, if it's for the greater good for you.
Yeah, that's right. And as a 25-year-old, that's really hard, because you're in that, I think these days now the 25-year-olds are probably much more evolved, but back then, it was really big for me. And there was a moment there when I was in that house where they twisted very badly something that had apparently happened in the house, and put me through this interrogation process, and played on that fear by saying the whole nation's going to hate you if you don't, this is what they're going to see, and you need to come clean. And this kind of interrogation went on for hours. I'm talking like hours, 8 hours locked in this diary room, going on and on and on until I cracked. And you don't even have any control, so you've got no control over how you're being portrayed. You've got no control over what 7 million people that are watching you every night are seeing or thinking. And then you're the person in the house that is so sensitive to your beautiful mum and dad watching it that you don't want to take your clothes off and run around naked. And so then you've got all of, you know, the pressure of the people in the house saying, why aren't you taking your clothes off? You know, you're being this and that, you know, so there's all of these things around this. And actually, this is one of the biggest gifts I think that I received from that experience, because doing what I do and looking like I look, because I'm, you know, I'm a blonde-haired, blue-eyed woman who likes pretty dresses from the Andes, you know, that works with the traditions. I am
slightly angelic.
So don't let that blonde and blue eyes fool you, Gemma. You're from the, I am from the Andes, but you know, I'm a multifaceted woman who loves to embrace beauty. I love every single aspect of being a woman. And I also love lots of dirt under my nicely manicured fingertips.
Yeah, you're a real girl.
We love it. It's all aspects of Jen. All aspects.
It's everything. And, you know, when I go to my mountains in Peru, I put on a pretty dress because I'm going to see my most precious masters, my most precious maestros and teachers. So, you know, why wouldn't I want to, you know, feel and be my most radiant for these beautiful beings? You know, this is how I look at it. So I think I've definitely got a bit of ancient Egyptian in there too. I've got Cleopatra vibes for sure.
Yes, feeling
absolutely.
I love it. So anyway, so coming out of that was really big and challenging. Lesson number 2 was learning that I wasn't responsible for everybody's happiness. So and that's a big one for people, especially in healing arts. You know, we tend to come in with this program that we're responsible for everyone's healing, for people's healing and happiness. And I had this very strong program running. Like we would see these big groups of people, thousands of people. And I had this mission that every person that left me was going to feel better when they left me than when they arrived.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful intention, but wowzers, did I lose a lot of energy until I found myself face planted in a hotel room in Star City Casino in Sydney, crying, I can't go out there, I can't do it, because I didn't have the tools as an empath to know how not to take on everybody's stuff, right? That's what I was doing, and that's what I was feeling. So there was another lesson, and I had to start learning how to, what I've learned is that it's not to do with protection. It's learning to know ourselves as a crystal, that we're crystals, you know, we're crystalline beings. When you think of how we work with a crystal, you know, the crystal doesn't protect or push away or say, no, don't give me that heavy energy. The crystal knows itself as the highest frequencies of love and light. So it can literally inhale, it takes in the energy and it transforms it, and then it uses that heavy energy for power. It shoots it back out as fractals of light, or as high frequency energy. So that's been the journey. It's not about protection, it's about transformation. And it's also being okay to say no. You know, just because you can doesn't mean you have to. Like if you're feeling vulnerable, then what I do is I call on my team, being Pachamama, Mother Earth, or my mountains, or the beings of nature, the luminous beings, all of them, to work with me and help me move it. And if I really am tired and feeling vulnerable, I just remove myself, you know, and say not today, and that's okay too. So this was all, you know, all big learning. But going back to your question, when I came out of the house, I was very much in that kind of A-list celebrity world, going to the lobbies, going to, you know, all of these crazy things. It was so much fun, it was ridiculous. But I was like, you know, the fish out of water in a way on the inside. Like I looked all the things on the outside, but I knew that I had a purpose for being in these spaces. I knew that my purpose was to bring light, you know, to bring that. And I started having, I was in a relationship and I actually had to end that, not because he wasn't an awesome human and a really beautiful guy, but because I was going so deep on this inner journey that I needed to not have any distraction. I just needed to spend a lot of time getting to know myself, and I spent a lot of time in meditation and contemplation. And I also started to have incredible experiences, tastes of what I think it feels like to be fully awakened, where sometimes it would last for sometimes 2 or 3 days, where all of a sudden and it would often come when the most challenging things were happening. You know, I'm talking like shit was falling apart, like it was really big. And all of a sudden I've got this expanded awareness. It wasn't like being out of body. It was just an expanded awareness that could see over all things. I could see the drama, I could see the play, I could see how funny it was.
Yeah.
And I just, like playing chess, I just was like, oh yeah, there was no stress, there was no anxiety, there was just. And then sometimes I would go out, I remember I'd go to nightclubs and I wouldn't drink, I wouldn't do anything. And I'd be awake for days on end. And I actually had people would come to me from the other side of the room and say, something is going on.
What are you on? I want some of that.
He came over and he was like, I just need to say, he said, I don't, many people in here would know what they were seeing. He said, but your light is illuminating this room.
Oh, how beautiful.
He was like, you just take care of that light. He said, I think he was an angel, because then he just disappeared.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Wow, that's so beautiful.
Well, they do just come in like that, don't they, for that purpose, just to affirm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And I think grace, I've learned too, you know, that grace, which is what I believe this was, it takes different forms. It's not always pretty, grace. You know, we think grace comes in and it's like, oh, like the angels, you know. But sometimes grace is hard because it works. What I've experienced is that it works in the physical body it moves through the energy centers, it moves through and it finds places in the body that there is rather than calling it a block, where there's a lack of movement or a lack of consciousness, and it goes to work on that. You know, it's like water pushing against a dam, you know, and so you can have all kinds of physical symptoms and physical pains that can be ongoing and feel like they're really chronic. And then when there's a pop through and there's this big rush of energy, then sometimes, you know, you can really feel like you're standing on the edge of an abyss and you're about to dissolve, and you're going to lose your mind, you know, and that can be a really scary place for people as well. And I think especially if it happens too quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's exactly what you're just saying. I've had a friend who had an AO experience where the mother was coming through him and like cleaning it, and then it would get to like a blockage and she'd like sit there and work on this area in his body until he would let it go, and whatever it was he got, and she would move through and go back out, and he'd be like, where's she going? Oh, here she comes. She's coming back through, like cleaning out those blockages and everything you're just talking about. Afterwards, he just felt so like cleaned and alive and light. Yeah, exactly right. I mean, this is the power of the medicines and what they do, you know, and it's and it's also to be a little bit careful with the medicines. I just realized there's a little thing making a noise here. I'll turn that off.
We had the same thing, working out the technology a little.
Because, you know, these experiences are awesome, and sometimes they can be a little bit too hard and quick, a little bit too hard and fast, and you know, they can shoot you out of your body and create a bit of a split in the soul, and a bit of a, you know, that this can happen. It happened to me with my first medicine journey many years ago, which is one of the reasons I serve medicine now in the way that I do, because I'm super aware of that can affect people. And it is an awakening process, but it's also to remember that the medicines, they give you a connection to your true nature, to the truth of who you are, to the source of all life. And then that's not the work though. The work is that just gives you a glimpse, you know, and then you come away from that journey and it's up to you to polish the diamond then. Through your practices and through the contemplations and awarenesses, we have to close the gap then and be able to reach those states without needing the medicine. Absolutely.
That I think is a big part of it, isn't it? Because we can become dependent on anything really, whether it's whatever our intentions are. So to see that it still comes back to us
doing the work
and our connection with source, that pureness of that and the work.
And the level of expansion that you reach will be equal to a level of contraction. There has to be, you know, as you expand, then there's also a period of coming back in, and we call that integration. But most people, well, not most, I shouldn't say that, because some people are very good at it, but generally just through the nature of life and life being busy and all the things, we don't really give ourselves that time and space to do it. And then our soul and its infinite wisdom, because it takes, it's all of that remembering, that, because that's really what it is. The medicines are awakening a divine memory, a divine blueprint within you. And that remembering, or what you've received, it's already in the cells, but the mind is fighting to catch up. It's trying to figure it all out. Right?
Bloody mind.
And
Beautiful mind, the beautiful mind.
Effing mind. Seriously. This is beautiful. I think
so you're still in your 20s,
yeah,
with all this, like the Big Brother, coming out into the world and going, yes, 7 million people did think I was amazing, and want to know more of me, and navigating that still into your purpose, like following that calling that you're feeling through all of that fame, if you want to, and mainstream kind of calling as well. That would be quite a strong pathway that could have kind of pulled you off to the side as well if you hadn't been so.
Well, I guess it's like having nice manicured fingernails and having dirt under them at the same time, and loving both equally.
Yeah, cool.
And what I learned from that, and what I believe, is it doesn't have to be one or the other. That we're here, and this is why I love the Andean traditions, because we're here to taste it all. We're here to experience it all. So we don't have to go sit on the mountaintop, because that's not where the work is. The work is down in the communities. It's out in it's out in the cities.
Yeah.
And, bringing it out into the world. And so, yeah, my life was a mixture of red carpet events and ashrams.
Yeah.
I spent my spare time, when I didn't have anything going on, like a weekend where there was nothing that I had to be at, I would go to the Satyananda ashram in a place called Rockland in Dalesford.
Beautiful place.
Spent a bit of time at Dalesford.
Yeah, it's so beautiful.
It's beautiful, yeah.
Lots of nature, beautiful trees, incredible trees. Yeah.
Beautiful nature. So yeah, that was my life, was going up there. And then I really, through my business that I was doing at the time, which interestingly was a cosmetics company. And the reason that I did that was because Max Factor had come to me and offered me a big chunk of money to do something with them. And my first question was, is it Australian made? And they were like, no. My second question was, does it have parabens and preservatives in it? And they said, well, yes. And I said, well, I'm not interested then. So I developed my own range that was Australian made, that was free of all of that nasty stuff, which made it very expensive to produce. And the slogan was "Awaken the Goddess," and all of the colors and the boxes and all of the things every box had a different inspirational quote on it. The names of the products were all like chakra, ethereal, all the names of the archangels and the thing, all in this, so that was a way of getting stuff across. And then this is really funny. I remembered this the other day. I was telling a friend, this is hysterical. I got asked to go onto a game show, a TV game show. And if you got to the final round, like if you won, it was like a trivia thing, and you got to the final round, you got to choose a subject of your choice that the producers would then have to go and research and try and ask you questions to trip you up, right? So there would be you and one other person who'd also chosen a subject of their choice. And my subject, really funny.
So you won, you got to choose.
I got to choose because I got to the end, and I got to choose was the chakra system. And they were like,
that's so cool.
And I'm like, the chakra system. And they're like, what the hell is the chakra system? And I said, well, you just told me to choose a subject that I was really expert in. So go and do your research. Ask me whatever questions you want. And during the filming of that, what I remember so clearly is that the lights they had chosen in the studio, like for the stage, for the lighting of the set, were neon blue. And I'm like, Archangel Michael, you're like, this neon blue. I'm like, thank you. I could feel the presence of this guardian there. And then I get to the end, the money was going to charity. It was like $20,000, whoever won, and it goes to a charity of your choice. Mine was the Kids Helpline, which was to prevent suicide.
Wow.
In teenagers. So we get to the end, and they start asking me these questions on the chakra system. I'm just like, and part of the reason that I did that wasn't because I knew a lot about the chakra system. It was because I was always looking for ways to open the eyes and to wake up the mainstream. And I was like, you know, this is prime time, 7 p.m. Mums and dads and kids are watching this. And I can't even tell you how many emails came in from people saying, I didn't even know what the chakra system was.
Yeah.
And I researched, oh my God, this is amazing. You know, so that was always, it was just natural that I wanted to use whatever I could to pick things up and wake people up. And so anyway, they asked me a question and they told me that I got it wrong.
Oh.
And in the middle of the game show, I'm like, excuse me, it's not wrong. What? And then they cut, you know, and shut the whole thing down. And they're like, what are you doing? And I said, well, it's not wrong. You can't.
Oh, classic.
It's not wrong. You have to go and research it. And then they came back and they had to do this whole thing. Oh, whoops, we made a mistake. And I ended up winning.
Oh, yay!
The chakra system.
So I won.
So you're like a version of your version of the Celestine prophecy in a way, because for me that book was like a red light for the masses, like the general public who hadn't like tapped into energy and, you know, how we interact with each other and things like that, exertion of will. And like what you just did then is like a similar kind of thing, like, through that experience.
Absolutely.
Isn't it? You know, tapping into the masses, waking them up, giving them something
so cool
to expand into, to think about.
It was so many things like that. And then I realized, wow, you know, because I was pretty strong in terms of, I didn't give a flying whatever what anyone else. I really didn't give a flying fuck whether people thought I was weird or, you know, I lost. When you go through this process, I think it's really important for people to know that it's really normal that people will drop away in life, you know, and that's okay. And it's painful and it's hard and it can be confusing. But it's not to also take a stance of, oh, I'm a light worker and I'm at this vibration and you're no longer vibrating. It's not about that.
No.
You know, it's just about understanding that, you know, you are moving to a different, it's like a tuning fork, you know, you're moving to a different frequency, and what resonates with that frequency will vibrate in the field of that, and it will come closer and grow, you know, then the sound will become more beautiful, but it's at a different frequency. It just literally will resonate off, you know, it just has to resonate away. And so, yeah, there was people in my life that I was very close to that were very confronted about this stuff, and even annoyed and even mean, you know, about it. And it was just like having compassion and understanding and love and being okay, and not having to change their mind. You know, not trying to fit somebody else into your map of the world, and just loving them for where they're at. This is a really big thing, and that includes your family especially. Like, I think a true leader just leads by example, not by preaching. So that's the thing, you know, and it's not an easy process, but it's a normal part of the process. And so I realized that there were a lot of people out there that probably weren't as I grew up as an only child, you see, so I was also very used to self-sourcing and being on my own, you know. But I know that there were a lot of, and I'd been through the big experience of, you know, everything that I'd been through to get me to that point too. But I saw that there was a lot of people that were struggling, you know, that were opening up spiritually to their spiritual path, to their gifts, whatever. And we're in very mainstream communities and roles and jobs and mums and families and all the things. And they felt very ostracized. And so I started in my apartment in St Kilda in Melbourne. Every fortnight I started inviting people, anyone who'd want to come, as many as I could fit in. And I'd have a different person come every fortnight and share their gifts. So I remember this once, and people would just come, you know, and I'd put on big pots of chai and this,
How old are you at this stage?
26.
Oh, you're still so young. This is
26, 27.
Yeah, wow.
And I had this amazing Tibetan monk that would come. His name was Lobsang Tenda, and he lived in a monastery in Brighton with a Catholic priest and a Jewish rabbi.
Oh, wow. It sounds like a joke. It sounds like you're going to say a joke any minute. Like, but it's like, how gorgeous is that mix of divinity?
So beautiful. They used to go around Australia teaching the children about interfaith and about how it's all one. And Lobsang would come and couldn't speak a word of English, but he'd sit there and he would, talk in Tibetan and then meditate. And I used to say to the people, like, don't worry that you can't hear him, that you can't understand the language. Just listen to him through your heart, like to the vibration. And it was just so touching and beautiful those times.
Like language, like activating the space.
Full intention with his prayer.
So beautiful.
And that's all of this taps to your future self traveling to the Andes, like that whole community aspect of what you're practicing in St. Kilda.
Yeah.
Kind of as like the villages, isn't it? Or like what?
Yeah. I actually realized very strong, and funnily enough, it was only recently, a year or two ago, in a temple in Bali, because I just do, when you come in, we all come in with our gift, right? And our gift is not something that we do, it's something that we just are innately, that we be, that's our true work, whether it's connecting and bringing community, whether it's bringing joy, whether it's compassion, whatever it might be. And I was in a temple with my priest in Bali and a group of women that I brought, to do this very special pilgrimage. And the masters, the ancestors of this temple just were like, you're the bridge. Your gift is to be able to understand very effortlessly these ancient technologies. I don't know why, I just can. It goes in like a sponge. And interpret them and share them in a way with people that helps them to understand it, and then use those tools in life, because the ancestors, they knew a thing or two. And when we bring those tools into our life just becomes more effortless.
It's so wild, because now, when you look and we've listened to part of your life so far, and it's so full of human experience, like big time human experience. And you can see exactly why you would be a bridge from having that experience into this kind of ethereal world and bringing those people through.
Yeah, and I think
Makes so much sense.
Yeah, I've lived 1,000 lifetimes in one, I feel, like I grew up in a very, as I said, I was in pubs, very Aussie, not wealthy parents, very salt of the earth,
hardworking.
Hands are like animals. My dad used to bring home injured animals 1 or 2 days old, and I would, goats and sheep, and I would rear them until they, so there was all of this earthy experience, and then moving through, that the party days, and then the fashion world, and then I ended up on TV, and then I end up with, in that whole world. And then I went through bankruptcy, a very public one that was front page of the papers. And at the same time, my dad was diagnosed with terminal cancer. My partner that I was seeing at the time was a very well-known Australian actor. And I lost my business, and not just the business, everything material went. Like they took my house, they took, everything went. And all of those experiences, I never saw it as losing anything. They all gave me a gift. My spiritual practice became so strong during those times, because I had to find ways to stay centered and to stay grounded in amongst all of those things that were going on, because it was big, it was relentless, absolutely relentless for 10 years. And no one would see that on the outside, of course, but what was going on. And then when it finally, the shit hit the fan, and it was time to, after fighting, it was time to throw the hands up in the air and say, okay, I get it, I surrender, this is not my path. And then it was front page of all of the newspapers and all the things. So I had to go through that ego death publicly.
It's like being nailed to the cross, isn't it? That whole experience of like, there's no mercy. Everyone just wants to like, put you there and for their almost their
It's satisfaction.
Yeah, entertainment, isn't it? You know, kind of thing. And yet all, as you say, all the aspects of you that you're experiencing, like with your dad, I mean, you just want the world to stop and be there for him, but you know, yet all this other stuff is going on. It's like very, very chaotic, isn't it?
Yeah, it's chaotic, and in that is where we find our greatest treasure, I believe. You know, because it's not to say that it doesn't take you out at times and flatten you, it does. But I really believe, and P.S., I've been in my earlier life, I was diagnosed twice with clinical depression as well. So I know what it's like to hit those depths and to have it feel like you don't have control over what your mind's doing and how you're feeling. And I really believe, having been through that and coming out the other side and knowing that I never need to go there again because I have the tools, that depression really is a fear of feeling. You know, we're not taught, nobody is teaching us how to work with the sensations in our body and how to work somatically in the body and go right in to these feelings of despair and see what they feel like somatically, like where do they sit in the body, what does it feel like, and keeping focus, you know, staying and working with the sensation in the body, and then the story just starts to take the back seat, because the problem is there again, we attach these feelings of I can't get up, I can't wake up, I can't to oh my God, I'm so depressed, oh this happened and that happened and what am I going to do? And you know, we get so, this vortex, the story becomes so big that we can't get ourselves out of it. But the only way through these times is not around, it's through.
Yeah,
we've got to go through, and we're just so taught to band-aid everything, or to just, you know, soldier on, come on love, get on with it, you'll be right, come on,
or the prescription drugs, things like that, just to numb everything, you know, like we'll make that feeling go away, which is even more about the issue, isn't it? You know?
And not to say too, because I don't want to say that sometimes in some cases that medications aren't required. It's totally fine, and there's no shame in that. And for the short term, if it's needed, but alongside, alongside what the medications I think should do is give you enough breathing space for you to be able to tap in and tune in and find the practices that are going to support you and work for you, including your diet and your lifestyle and all of the things, you know. So
make adjustments incrementally while you can keep breathing, you know, and you know, have that little bit of space within to move through, as you say, into the next place.
Exactly. But you know, really all of it just comes back, I think, when you're going through these huge big experience too, is to your connection to the God that's within you, to the source that's within you. And for me, again, you know, and what I live and walk and what I share with others too is just how much support we have from the allies, the guardians, the luminous beings, the mountains, the waters, the oceans, the elements, the earth. You know, they're all here for us. They're not just there to be pretty, they're actually there as ambassadors for source to give us exactly what we need. The stars, I mean, ancient people, their whole civilizations, their lives, how they built their houses, everything was mapped out by looking at the stars and you know, getting the guidance, understanding that we're living on an altar. The earth is an altar, and the stars are a reflection of that altar, and they show us how to map geographically what we need to put where and what energies we work with here. And when you start to understand that, even, you know, being aware of the cardinal directions and how they're working for you. You know, we're walking around in a container all the time, and the energies of the east, the west, the north, and the south are particular. You know, they're always arriving to us to support us in some way, to help us move through things.
Absolutely. We've just forgotten to ask. Our belief has been put elsewhere in areas that probably don't need to be put. And, you know, it's about connecting and asking more. I think we've forgotten to ask.
Yeah, that's a really good. And at the end of the day, and this is the thing, and I did struggle with this, I have to say. I went through a big process quite a few years ago of just asking, you know, why do I even need to call on anything? Why do I need to invoke anything when it's all just one? You know, there is no other, there just isn't. I mean, that's ultimately where I think that we arrive to. But what I understood was that all of these beings of the seen and the unseen world that we can have a connection to, a visceral connection. Like you can get in the ocean and you feel how she just takes away anything that's in your field, right? You can look at a mountain and you feel, I can be strong, you know, I'm protected. So for me, they are, I call them ambassadors of the one. You know, they're a gift from creation, just like we are, that have been made manifest for us to taste, see, feel, touch, and remember. You know, so that's why we call on them, because it's like in the Indian tradition, you know, where they have so many different deities, so many different names and so many different personalities or representations of the one God. It's the same, it's only one, but there's all these different flavors, all these different personalities that we can engage with and work with. And ultimately, when we're connecting to and calling on these beings of nature, we're only calling back parts of ourselves that we've forgotten.
Yeah, that's a big one. I've been learning about that recently, the whole you know, asking for support from the beings, but the beings are just aspects of us from past and future. It's like, you know, we're just bringing it all back into the one. And it just feels so beautiful when you say that, and it really resonates.
Yeah, it's really simple. It's not always easy, right? It's actually really...
Well, as you say, like living through, you know, through bankruptcy and, you know, family illness and things like that, the realities of these lessons and learnings and, you know, the silver linings that are always there.
Yeah, I look back, and it's, for some reason this has been coming up a lot recently. People have been asking, you know, because I'm so present in what's here now that I forget to sometimes tell the stories of the past, because it's just like, but then it makes you who you are, and it's also very helpful, you know, for people that are going through something. But I was having a giggle because I had nothing. Didn't have two coins to rub together, you know. I'd go, like, for example, I remember I would go out with my friends and we would go up to the Dandenongs to have chai, and we'd go to the market and they'd all be buying, you know, the little things at the markets and stuff, and I'd be looking and saving my $2 coins for the one chai that I'd get. You know, and just and I remember when what came through was I never wanted it to be a business. It became a business. Naked Treaties, it was called. This beautiful food, and how it started was I started making these treats for the ashram for prasad. I take it up to the Swami and give it, you know, as an offering. And anyway, people started asking me for these things, and I was like, no, I'm not giving them to anyone. I do not want this to be a business. This is my love. And then I had a very strong experience in a meditation where this being turned up who looked like a kind of like a Gandalf. It was like 15 feet tall, again, this neon blue, carrying a staff, handed me a crystal and told me to get over myself, and that this was not negotiable, that it wasn't a choice. And he said to me in no uncertain terms that there was something big coming in the years to come, and that even though people were doing a lot of work on themselves, their bodies were not prepared to receive the frequencies of light that were going to be available to the planet.
Wow, Jem.
This is in 2007.
Yeah.
And that if they didn't do the work to get the cells prepared, the physical vehicle prepared, then some of them would die.
Yeah, wow. Yeah.
And so this was part of my service, was to again do exactly like I was doing before and get it mainstream, make it sexy, make it taste good, make it appealing, and make it clean as a whistle, you know, so that people of the mainstream as well as the spiritual community. So you've got all the people that are already into it, and they're done. That's easy because they're all doing it already. Yeah. But then how do we get it out to everybody else, you know? And so that's how I said yes to that, and it went like a rocket. But what was interesting to me was that I had no monies, and I borrowed $600 from my mum, and I bought seeds. Now, I think that is so metaphoric that I was
planting seeds for the future.
But yeah, the seeds was making my goji balls and my snowballs, I call them, from these things, but they were all seeds.
Hey,
So
Jem, quickly, there's something quite noisy in the background. Sorry.
yeah, it's the people with the blower. Hang on, give me 1 second. I'll just close the windows.
Yeah, the seeds, like the hen who plants seeds to grow the grain, to make
Yes,
the
of
bread,
course.
and yeah, that
Planting seeds. That's
mm.
hilarious.
You want to top up?
Ladies, if you can if you can still hear it.
And
No,
okay.
that is so much better.
And it
Okay.
gave us a chance to see your gorgeous dress as well. It's so pretty.
I can put headphones on if you need me to, and then you shouldn't be able to hear it at all, I
Okay,
think.
no, that's fine now. That's heaps better.
Thank
We're,
you.
we're talking about something extremely important. I'm like,
We can't
you have to hear
miss
this.
it. Yeah. So the seeds with your snowballs and
Yes.
your goji balls.
Oh yeah, so the first thing I bought was seeds, which were just incredibly metaphorical, I didn't even realize it until literally a couple of weeks ago. I was like, oh my God, because now I make offerings all the time, and the most important part of the despacho of the offering are the seeds, because you lay all of the prayers down, and then then you seed them, you're offering seeds. And that's what I did back then, is I was seeding this new
Wow.
this new way. And so yeah, that was the
It
next.
was an amazing business too. Like the food was superb. Like
Thank you.
it was absolutely it was divine in every way. Yeah, it was.
Thank you.
And the team that you had were just gorgeous as well. There was always such
Yeah.
a mix of people in there baking all this beautiful food, and so the whole like water for chocolate, the whole energy of what was happening there was with everything that you created was just that essence was in every bite.
Thank you. Like Water for Chocolate was definitely an inspiration as well. And it was a way, like our little tagline was living food, loving vibration. It was a way of sharing a vibration of love through food. And as we were making things, everything had crystals in it with bushflower essences. Yeah, it was so beautiful. And actually a lot of the people that worked with me back then, we still work together now on Anchoring the Light, which is really
so cool.
Yeah, it's really amazing. And what I find so beautiful about it is that it created community. That was always, when I opened the shop here in Byron, it was just because I would have like 70 people around to my house and do a cacao ceremony just to bring community together. That's just what I love to do. And I was like, I'm going to get this out of my house. And so
Big job every week cleaning up.
Part of the reason that I opened the shop was to create that community. And now still, I know that they all catch up. People all catch up still.
Wow. How long did Naked Treaties go on for, and what was the shift in there like for you?
Yeah, Naked Treaties continued on. I handed Naked Treaties over. I literally gave it away in January of 2017. I had really started to walk my Andean path at the beginning of 2012, and I'd been given, in no uncertain terms, instruction from the medicine that I was to be, walking and working as a medicine woman, which is what Naked Treaties had begun, that process, because food is medicine. And, we're working with the medicine of cacao. I was working with cacao all the way back then. Before anyone even knew what a cacao ceremony was, I was doing cacao ceremonies just intuitively because I knew that this was really powerful medicine. And that started that path. And so then it was kind of an unweaving on many, many different levels, financially, physically, spiritually, emotionally, energetically. It was an unweaving of that. And that took some time when I got when it was like, this is how it has to be. Because for years I was doing both. I apprenticed, and then I started working in ceremony, taking people to Peru whilst I was doing Naked Treaties, and I was wearing myself into the ground PS.
Yeah.
And that's...
Were you working with Chrissy then? Did you work with Chrissy Firemay?
Chrissy Firemay?
Yes.
Chrissy Firemay and I have been friends for a long time. Yes. Yeah, we've never worked together as in collaborated.
Oh, okay. Yep.
Sometimes she would come to my ceremonies and do something, or I would go to her ceremonies and do something.
Oh, lovely.
We're friends. Yeah. Yeah.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
We're not just friends. We have a very strong cosmic connection.
Yes.
Many lifetimes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can feel that. Yeah.
Yeah. We have similarities in what we share, but we have very different ways of bringing them through. And I think that's what we really love and appreciate in each other. We can call on each other for support. It's like in the Andes, we call it Yanantan Masintan, which is the divine and equal opposites that when come together create a powerful whole.
Oh, I love that.
That's me and you, lovely.
Yes. That is gorgeous.
Like complementary dualism.
Yeah, I love that. I love that.
Complementary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's part of the podcast, you know, is about hearing each woman's journey, because it's so different. And I think a lot of people think it has to be a certain way. Like, you know, you have to speak quietly, or you have to dress a certain way, or you have to, you know, not paint your fingernails anymore, or whatever it may be. You know, it's like, no, God, be your beautiful, authentic self and do it well.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I was very blessed to have an amazing yoga teacher around that time in my mid-20s, who was at that time in his late 50s. And he was an original student of Patabi Joy from the Ashtanga tradition and from the Iyengar, directly from Iyengar as well. And he was quite the master, because I remember because I was in Melbourne, right? But I would come up to Byron Bay, and probably I don't know if I was, but probably I was coming back a little bit eye gazy and a little bit like speaking, you know, as you were saying.
Yeah, from Byron. Really?
And I don't know if I was doing that, but I remember coming in and he looked me right in the eye and he said, "Don't you think for a second that speaking in a slow, wafty voice and eye gazing makes you spiritual?" All about the inner work, about building the fire. It's about do. And he just like chopped that right out there and then pulled that, because you do. I mean, I see it a lot happening, and I spend a lot of time in conscious communities that aren't so conscious, and it's, you know, it's it can be a thing. It can become a little bit of a, you know, like every sort of genre has its its flavor, and it almost becomes a bit of a fashion.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Thank heavens, I think that is becoming less and less, and yeah.
Well, and there's something about the light, but you know, people like, you know, upholding people who have such a strong fire and power, as we've said before, the light, because you want the truth to be strong, you know, and not the fashion, if you want, you know.
Also very aware of keeping it inclusive. That's a big thing for me, you know, because there's lots of that going on in sort of spiritual communities, I think, where it can actually feel quite daunting and a bit cliquey and a bit exclusive.
Or separate, which that's the last thing you would expect if it was an authentic environment.
Yeah. But it can, and it does sometimes feel like that, and that's something that doesn't gel with me. I'm very inclusive, and I love to make everyone feel seen, heard, comfortable, you know, and welcome to be there, no matter what your background or where you're from or how you look or what you choose to wear or do or be or whatever. Yeah.
I think I had my first selfie with you at a Donovan Frankenreiter concert in the Oval at Byron.
Oh my God.
And I was like, oh, this girl takes the best selfies. Like, you know, like, well, not this girl, but I knew who it was. I just wanted to connect with you, and you did exactly that. You just embraced me, and you know, because at the time, but and it was just a really fun little moment. But literally, when you said that, you are very open to everybody, and in the most beautiful way. It's really lovely.
Yeah,
it's a long time ago.
I think I remember that. I actually remember it's so funny because I remember it by the color lipstick I was wearing.
That's so cool.
Yeah. And I actually remember that day, somebody saying to me, "Why do you have to wear that, you know, on your face. I said, because I like it and it makes me feel good. Like,
yeah.
I was wearing my favourite blue dress, so I totally get what you mean. Yeah.
Expectations we put on ourselves, the way we want to pigeonhole ourselves and everybody else into these little boxes. It's like, just be who you are. That's the key to authentic leadership. Like I was saying with my students last night, I've had to, wowzers, some of the situations that I've been put in, you know, like I could rattle many off, but one, facilitating a huge ceremony here in Byron Bay with Indigenous leaders from around the planet. And here I am, you know, again, this blonde lady who's, you know, Indigenous to the earth and very, you know, definitely I'm coming from the stars, and, you know, but, you know, but my skin and how I look is not, you know, I don't look like that at all. And it was such a beautiful experience because you know, and this is something that I've experienced a lot during my life. And again, going back to this Big Brother experience prepared me for, and that is being okay to be judged and knowing that if you have the chance to spend more than 5 minutes with somebody, that they'll feel your authenticity. And that only really comes from, you know, it's there's always going to be people that are going to be judging you, you know. But when you really know yourself and you know the depth of your connection and you can feel somebody's heart, you listen, you acknowledge, and you're also really, really clear about where you're at and what you understand and the things, then people are able to see past that stuff, you know, even people that are very, you know, like these guys were even fighting with each other. You know, I'm trying to organise an opening ceremony where they're all included and they're fighting. I don't do that my way. Not now. We don't do that in our land. We don't call that, we don't speak to that one over there. They're over there and they're over there. And so I'm there being the bridge again and saying, okay, so this is what you love to do in your tradition. Tell me about it. What do you think that we should do? Well, how about you do this here? And then, you know, then we've got a Lakota elder there with his drum, like singing in, calling in his way. And we've got an Indigenous elder from here with his didge and calling in his way. And, you know, it's like where we're from is beyond all of this, you know, but it's like the rays of the rainbow, you know, each ray has a really specific and really beautiful gift and a tradition and a lineage and a thing, but the rays, when they come together, they just make up one light.
Yeah.
And in the same arc as well, but they're all bending the same way, which is phenomenal in itself too.
It's so beautiful because I'm thinking with you talking and saying that, it's like from when the first email that I sent to you about the podcast, and I had the most divine response from Kelly. And I said to Amanda, oh my God, you can tell straight away. The feeling I got was that your resonance went through your team and that came through Kelly, and the way that she answered the email, I was like, I wanted to acknowledge her. I was like, oh my God, you were so divine. This is so beautiful, you know. And I was just like, what a beautiful representation for you and where you play, you know, that expansive, beautiful space is in your team. Like you feel it through you, through her, through to me. So that's an acknowledgement to you as well, because she literally was just divine. It was felt big time.
Beautiful, Cal, and Chrissy as well, just sending out so much love and gratitude to these beautiful angels. I mean, Cal and Chrissy both worked. Cal was one of the first people that worked with the Meet Naked Treaties.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Been through that. And Chrissy as well. Chrissy managed one of the stores. So, you know, like it's just,
right in here. Yeah.
Really beautiful.
So when you started doing cacao ceremonies and taking people to Peru, how did that feel? I mean, that must have just been like, because traveling for yourself and going through these countries and connecting and answering all those callings in yourself, and then when you get to take people to those places, how was that?
Oh my gosh, it was amazing. You know, for years, from 2013 through to 2017, I didn't even realize this is how in love I was with just sharing and what I was doing. I didn't realize that every journey I was doing was costing me a couple of thousand US.
I love you. I think we're on the same page with unconsciousness around money. Not unconsciousness, not attachment. It's just like, aren't we, Jo?
It was costing me my flights, and what I didn't know was that I was just whatever it cost, like to do it, because
Yeah.
spending time there with my family, with my brothers. I'm like, what if I bring a group? Should we do that? That would be amazing. Yep. Okay. All right. Well, let's figure it out. What do you need? And, they would give me what their cost was, and that's what I would charge people. Did not even think there's exchange rates, currency fees, all of the things, which is they're actually really huge. It's a lot of money.
Yeah.
And then I've not got any money. And then I realized, oh, I'm actually paying like $300 for each person to come.
You're so giving. You're so giving.
I just loved it so much, it was so beautiful, and still is so beautiful to see people be in direct communion and receiving from that land. And it's life-changing. I've seen many people, and there again, it's for me, it's doing what I love to do, being the bridge and creating community, because every ceremony I do, every training I do, every trip to Peru I do, we have a pod, like a group for every person, so they're all connected, they're all staying connected. They're still, even people that came in 2014 or 13, they're still connected now.
It's beautiful. There's such a strong weaving in the tapestry, isn't it, when those threads stay like stay strong.
Like the moving away from it being a centralized figure that is the one to go to for experience or wisdom sharing or whatever, and instead encouraging everybody that you have people often will say, well, what have I got to share? It's like the things that you traverse and that you live through in your life and that you overcome, that's gold.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Absolutely.
Everybody has wisdom to share, and everyone is a teacher. So it's just super beautiful to empower that as well.
It is. Now I know you've got something on straight after this, so we just wanted.
No, we're fine.
You good? Okay. Right. We wanted to. We've already talked about the things that you had to give up. We kind of that just naturally went down that path. People, things. What do you do now? Look, I feel like this is a silly question for me because I actually follow you and I know what you do, but for the listeners, what do you do now that supports yourself for staying in the moment and, like true to you?
Yeah. So it's really the same thing as I was sharing. It's building and maintaining a communion with all of it. And when I say all of it, ultimately it's to yourself, but I know tangibly, so powerfully and so strongly how I've been held and guided and supported through everything that I've traversed in my life, through building the communion and the connection with these allies, with these sacred guardians that are aspects of myself that are with me and working with me. Nature is one of, if not the most powerful ways to come back to your center and stay connected to yourself. She has an answer to absolutely everything that we need. If you're still long enough to listen, she'll tell you. And that doesn't mean to say you even have to sit in nature. You can connect through the powerful portal of your mind and your visualization to that. So that is a really important practice for me to do that. And, just simple things like, I'll tell you shall I just give you my little daily?
You're on track, because I was about to say, can you just give me a day in the life of Jem?
So when I wake up in the morning, sometimes it can be, and I think that there will be people out there that will resonate with this, especially as empaths. Sometimes I can wake up feeling very heavy. I can feel sometimes even a feeling of dread. Sometimes I wake up really joyful, but a lot of the time I wake up and I can feel, you know, before my mind has kicked in, it's a sensation in the body. So regardless of how I'm feeling, I think the thing to remember is that especially while we're sleeping, we're very open. And so before I go to bed every night, I call in, I don't flick off and clear out, but I call in all of the highest frequency energies to be with me while I sleep. I anchor that into my bed and I program a deep and restful sleep. I program my windows and my doorways that anything that comes through the windows and doorways is instantly transformed into the highest frequencies of love and the highest frequencies of light. I call in my guardians and I set them up around my bed. I sleep. And then when I wake up in the morning, the first thing I try and do is smile.
Yeah.
It's such a simple thing, but when you smile, you tell every organ in your body, you tell every cell in your body that everything is okay, you know, that, and it's a smile of just like, I'm here, okay. And then the next thing I do, and I'm very aware that if I wake up feeling off in the morning, that's not mine. Generally, that's stuff that has come in while I'm sleeping. So I'm super aware that not to take that on as mine and start making a story around it and start projecting back into the past or worrying into the future about what this feeling is. I just sit with the sensation. And then I put my hand on, and this all takes a couple of minutes. It sounds a lot, but it's really not. And the person that, you know, your partner or whatever could be sleeping next to you. I just take a hand on my heart and a hand on my belly, and I call in little Jemsy. Hey, little Jemsy.
Oh.
Yeah. Okay.
That's so sweet.
Okay. We can do this together. Okay, so take your hand, place it on your heart, and place another one on your belly. Take a breath. And call in your little one, whatever you might call her. My little one's Jemsy, you might have a nickname or maybe not. And just call her in, see her standing there, and just ask her, how are you feeling today, sweetheart? How are you feeling today? And whatever it is, however she shows up or he shows up, allow it completely. Accept how this little one is feeling. Don't try and change it. Just acknowledge, it's okay, sweetie. You know, if you're feeling anxious, that's all right, I'm here. If you're feeling joyful, awesome, we're going to have some fun. It's a good day. If you're feeling fearful, it's all right, darling, I'm here. We got this. You're okay. Everything's okay. And doing this in a very short space of time regulates your central nervous system, and it lets your inner child know that she is safe and loved, and that's all the inner child is looking for. The inner child only plays out because it thinks that it's needing something from something outside, but it's actually from you. It just needs, she needs, he needs simply to be allowed to be as he or she is, accepted and then embraced, and told that, you know, we got this, darling, we're good. And then I put myself inside of a crystal. I think of a beautiful crystal. For me, often these days, at this moment in time, it's aquamarine. It's like and it glistens with filaments of beautiful light. It can be any color you want though, but the crystal has to go around your entire body. It's like a double terminated crystal, so that the point of it could go down into the earth and the top of it could reach to the sky. And I feel myself encased in that crystal, not from protection, but that this is an extension of the beautiful crystalline energy of my high frequency energy. And then I imagine all of my beautiful guardians around me, whatever they may be for you, the sunshine, the mountains, the oceans, the archangels, the ascended masters, priestesses of light, the sun, the moon, whoever it may be, and of course, priestess of all ceremony, which is my beloved Mother Earth, a beautiful Pachamama. And then I breathe their energy into the crystal. We call this energy Sami. This is the refined energy. And as I breathe out, I share it. I see that this energy goes out and it literally transforms anything it touches. I do that a couple of times, some nice big breaths. And this can become very, very blissful, actually. Sometimes you realize that these feelings of anxiety or fear, when you work with this energy and with your breath, that they can turn into feelings of bliss and excitement, actually. And then I know that any energies that arrive to me, that arrive in a millisecond, as soon as they touch the surface of this crystal, they're instantly transformed. And then I take a moment to think about what I'm really grateful for my day, for anything. And if I can't tune into something because, there's a lot going on and it feels overwhelming, because sometimes we feel overwhelmed, I come back to the beauty of nature. Crystalline oceans, sunrise. Say thank you. Let that little smile come to my lips again. Thank you to the inner child, and then I'm ready for my day. And then sometimes, if I have the time and space to do it, I'll sit and I'll do a meditation, which is really working again with that similar kind of energy, anchoring that energy into the body, breathing the Sami energy in and out. And then I always try and remember to look up. So when I come out of my bed and into the outside, the first thing I do is I blow kisses to nature, and I look to the sky, and I remember how supported we are, and how protected we are, and how there really is nothing wrong. We're all okay, and there's something much bigger than us that's working here. And I ask for really clear guidance. I just ask life to show me really clearly the steps to take, make it obvious, make it easy, make it effortless. Yeah.
So beautiful.
Yeah, so centering.
Just centering. And, I have a beautiful altar, my
yes, I love that. It's so beautiful. Do you take that everywhere with you?
Yeah, I sleep with. I have 3 of them on my altar. It's called the Mesa, and it's a portable altar. So in here there are what we call queers, or masters of living energy. They're all programmed for specific things, and they work together as a team. But, as I say, you don't have to spend ages at your altar every morning, but I just, good morning.
Yeah.
Thank you for a beautiful day. Sometimes you've got time to sit down and do more, but that's enough. It's just maintaining the connection, the communion. Becoming contemplation is different to meditation, and it's equally as powerful or as important. That means that often it looks like I'm blowing on my drink because it's hot, but it's not. It's just that I'm always blessing, with my essence, with my breath, and it's become second nature to do that. If I have a glass of wine, I'll be in a restaurant and I'm like, put my finger in and I give some to the earth first and say thank you to Pachamama first.
Beautiful. Yeah.
To each moment, and realizing actually that life is the ceremony.
Yeah. That is a core. That's because even when to be in that space where you're mindful and you're giving thanks and your gratitude, it's like a certain point in the day or occasionally, but as you say, if every movement of flow through your day, you're in thanks and blessings and gratitude and that connection. That's the true harmony with all that you're doing, all it is, isn't it?
It is, and working with that remembering of the crystal is very, very powerful, because then if you're in a situation where you've got somebody in front of you that is not in their highest frequency and you're feeling yourself going, oh. You've got to remember that the more present you are, the less you will take on.
Yeah.
So if you stay really present with that person in that moment, anchor your energy down into the earth, feel yourself connected to the cosmos. You can be talking, they can be rah, 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 and you're doing this like internally. And then you put a beautiful crystal up, and you feel that anything that's coming is just transforming. And then you can even put them inside of a crystal too, so that they're, you can help them to move that heavy energy too. And that's then part of your service. That's part of what we call your aini. That's the reason. I'm just, these candles.
They get a bit excited at the end, don't they?
It's just they've got a thing of plastic around them, and I'm like,
toxic. quote.
That just quickly, just
Yeah.
that last word, because I know this came up in this giving and receiving. We call and you just said it. What was it
The
called?
irony.
The Aini.
Yeah, the Andean in the Andean cosmovision, the guiding principle is a
Yeah.
beautiful thing, Aini.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's the part I highlighted because I really
Yeah.
loved that. It really resonated. I was like, oh, I want to read that part out. So that's what I got from the website to read out about you. Yeah.
Yeah, so Aini in its simplest definition is sacred reciprocity. It's giving and receiving. That when we receive, we must give, and when we give, we must also receive. But it's much bigger than that. Actually, it means that nothing ever is going one way. We're always in exchange, whether we're conscious of it or whether we're unconscious of it. And Aini is actually our service here. It's our life purpose. It's that we're here to be in service to our planet, to our community, to our family, not through something that we do, like I said before, but just who we came to be, just a being. And so when we start to get really conscious of the flow of Aini, then it becomes very powerful, because if you're giving heavy energy out, then that has to return to you somewhere. And it even goes like when you're working with the earth, in some traditions, and still now, they teach people to flick their heavy energy to the earth. It's like you're setting up what we call Hucha Aini, which is heavy energy Aini. Like Pachamama is strong and powerful, and she can transform it. She can.
Yeah.
But why should she have to?
Yeah.
We're beyond that. We can transform the energy ourselves and then offer it to her as blessings. And if we need her help to transform energy, rather than flicking it off to her, we call on her to help us. We ask her to do it for us, rather than you take it.
Yeah. And
Wow.
it's kind of like projecting, isn't it? Basically, instead of taking responsibility for the energy yourself. So that's a very powerful practice to not create toxic swamps around us.
Yeah, and it goes right back to that thing that we were talking about, with every breath in, we're taking on one of two energies. We're either taking in high frequency energy or low frequency energy with every breath we take in. So when we start to become aware, and if you're aware that you're taking in some lower frequency energy, and then you think in that moment, rather than just unconsciously doing it, you become aware of it, and then you make a decision in that moment. Okay, so what can I do about this? How can I be in my best service here? And if you're feeling vulnerable, tired, weak, then sometimes you just need to excuse yourself. But if you're feeling in your center and you're having a day where you're feeling strong, then you can literally work with, even the simplest way is to put yourself inside of that crystal, and you can breathe consciously, take the energy from the other person, take it, like breathe it in, transform it in your Cosco and your solar plexus, transform it, see it being digested into light. And then as you breathe out, it's done. Not only has it been transformed, but it's been alchemized into high frequency energy, so that they then also receive the blessings, and so do you, because it's Sami Aini. It has to return to you. So when we start working on that level, then it's very rare that we get taken out, or we have to remove ourselves from situations, because we remember how powerful we are and how easy it is actually.
Yeah, and it's that self-responsibility, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is.
The powerfulness, it's just what you just shared then. There's like well, I don't know what word I want to use, but just change. This is a game changer, isn't it? Really, just to take on possession of that for yourself, to be able to do in your everyday life, in different situations. It's a complete game changer, isn't it?
It's a total game changer. And again, it's one of those things that's really simple, but we've moved away from the simplicity of that. I mean, you look at the communities up in the Andes, for example, that live by this principle, this cosmic law to this day. It's very simple. In the physical, if your neighbor helps you farm your potatoes one day, then you help him farm his potatoes the next. Or maybe you're not able to, but your neighbor knows that because he helped you, that somewhere along the line, somebody else is going to help him, right? And so they don't have any qualms in receiving. in the Andes. They are so open. They don't have that thing that we have of not being able, over giving and not being able to receive, because not receiving is as blocks the flow of Aini as much as not giving. Because you have to be able to receive it back. So, like if you're walking in the Andes and there's like a 90-year-old grandpa and he's, running circles around you, by the way.
Full of life.
And you hold out your bag of coca leaves and offer him some, not one hand goes in, two. And they do as much as they can possibly, they are not shy of receiving, because they know that this is Aini returning to them in some way.
That's so beautiful. If only we could take on that.
That's true abundance, isn't it? Like, that's a true belief, true living of abundance.
Yeah. And then it works that way with the earth, because they're in constant reciprocity through the offerings that they make. So, in the months of, particularly in August, from August 1st and for the whole month of August, it's Pachamama month. So all of the farming stops, they let the soils and everything rest and regenerate. And then for that month, they basically just make offerings called despachos and party a lot, have lots of fiestas and celebrations. And during that month, they are seeding their prayers for the coming cycle at the same time as giving a lot of gratitude and a lot of love through the offerings to Pachamama, because this is Aini in motion. They're giving, they give, and they give their love, they give their gratitude, they're seeding, and then they're receiving.
Yeah. Wow. So beautiful. So beautiful. Okay, so our very last question. Thank you so much for everything you've offered so far. It's been really beautiful.
I feel like we've journeyed so far, and
I feel filled up.
Yeah.
How does Jem see the world right now? And is there anything that you see next for us?
What's holding it?
Yeah. The first thing that just popped into my heart when you said that is to be really, I feel like we need to be really careful about, let me get this right, about what narrative we choose to follow and how much attention we give to things, and feeding into creating more separation and more division by something is right or something is wrong. Because what I feel is like when we're sort of coming up with all of these ideas about why this is happening and who's behind it, and all of the, I'm not just going to say the conspiracy theories, but all of the things that are sort of, that are out there that we can really get involved in. I see people very passionately getting involved in these things, and then almost dismissing anybody who doesn't want to get into that ism. It's like what I feel happens is that we feed the very forces that we're trying to loosen, get out of their grip. We're feeding those forces. So I feel like, it's to stay focused on the bigger picture. We're moving very quickly into, you hear about the fifth dimension, but the fifth dimension is just a frequency, right? It's the frequency of the heart. So it's a heart-centered way of being and a heart-centered reality. And, moving into that frequency means that a lot of things have to be annihilated. There's going to be a lot of, and there is happening, a lot of top-down destruction, while truths are being revealed and things are coming through. And it's kind of just to be able to witness all of those things and understand that there's something much higher happening. There's something much bigger going on. And it's a necessary part. It's like the medicine of the puma, of the great cats. It's like this annihilation, this destruction, so that this great change can occur. But we don't want to be feeding into those old, be aware of it, witness it, be compassionate to it, but at the same time be mindful not to feed the wolf you don't want to, that you don't, it's not about passing at all. It's just about, we have to keep our, in our individual journeys and in our collective journeys, I really feel like we have to work at keeping our vibrational frequency. We've got to remember that tuning fork, and that is how we're going to shift the momentum of the planet. is to acknowledge this stuff and do what we can do, but at the same time come back to the bigger picture. And that means finding support in like-minded communities, calling in people, friends, or spaces where you can be and sit in that frequency. I also feel very strongly that our nervous systems are very different now. We've been through a huge upgrade, and I don't feel that we need to do things in a hard way anymore. I think that blowing ourselves open with processes, with medicines, with whatever, is very old map of the world. And it doesn't need to be that way anymore. We don't have to do it the hard way. You know, so much can be healed fast and rapidly when we meet whatever we need to meet, but we're meeting ourselves in that high frequency energy, and then things can shift and move so fast. Because things are happening much faster. We're moving through our traumas and our stories much faster, and we really, you know, the healing cycle can't continue where you're constantly digging and digging and digging and digging at what's wrong all the time, because you're just perpetuating that. There has to come a time where you acknowledge it, you go through the process of feeling it and dealing with it, feeling to heal in the body, and then deciding, okay, now this is the story I'm going to tell. This is keeping my focus on, because that is how the change will be made. We just can't, you know, I say to people, it's like we're getting on Crystal Condor Airways, right?
Yes.
We're there.
And on Crystal Condor Airways, you're only allowed to take one bag, and it can only have in it what you really, really need, what is really going to not only serve you, but serve everyone in the new paradigm, in the new world, in the new, you know, where we're going. But what are you taking? And the rest of it, it's got to stay behind. It just can't come forward anymore. So I feel like we've got to start getting some discipline. Like, stop. You know, I'm not looping on this stuff anymore. It's not serving me. It's not serving anyone else. And decide, you know, to, you know, that's
gold.
100%. And that's where, like, sort of going back into the awakening and into like childhood or different experiences, it's a non-attachment to those moments, but yet the full learning, the full embrace of the what it's gifted you, and how the sharing of it gifts out into in that form of service as you've been sharing. But it's another lifetime, it's another frequency, it's a different density of experience to this moment in time now, and where each of our guests have sat down and so beautifully, so graciously share. But the gifts and the sharing, that's what it's all about, and how that activates everybody else. It's amazing. So beautiful, and the resonancy of those sharings. And like that Crystal Condor airline, wow, that's
got my hand up. Where are we going?
Eventually we realize that there's nothing to heal. You know, for me, I see it and sense it so clearly that we have the essence, which is the truth of who we really are. That's our unity consciousness. It's never born, never dies. And I see it just sitting, it just sits back so lovingly and so compassionately, like a wise elder, and it's watching the soul, you know, and it's the soul with all of its records of experience from this lifetime and all the others, and it racks up its, you know, and it says, okay, I've done this and I want to do that, and it thinks that it's got something to learn, it thinks it has something to fix or heal, you know, all of this stuff. And the essence, the isness, is just sitting back so lovingly watching, like watching a little child going, okay, there it goes. And then eventually the soul, the soul realizes that it is the essence, and that there is no separation, and there is nothing to fix, there is nothing to heal, and that is the fully awakened state. It's not to say that life gets easy, and it's, you know, or it's not to say that you don't still feel things or things don't happen. It's just that you're sitting in this loving presence of just welcoming it all and being okay, and come on, you know, that's all. No worries, it's okay. This is how I see the essence, you know. And so that's where I think eventually we will, that's what we're heading towards, that's what we're getting to. And, you know, with that loving awareness and that presence, we also realize that when we look at our traumas, and it's, you know, trauma is very real and it's relative to the person as well. You know, if something you might not think it's big for someone, but it could be huge. Yeah. I don't know, but, you know, that this is where I think it's really helpful and important to remember that the person that gave that to you, that did that to you, well, it wasn't theirs either. You know, and if you were to go back and look at that person as a child, at often the similar age that they did whatever, you know, whatever program, conditioning, abuse, it could be anything that they gave to you, you would pretty much see that there was a very scared little boy or a scared little girl there that did not receive what they needed. And why? Because the parent or whoever was there in that time, they didn't either.
No.
These heavy experiences, these heavy energies just get passed on, and they don't actually belong to anybody that passes them on, but it's because the person in that moment, they didn't have the tools available to them. They didn't know how to process this, but we do. We're the change. So the key to the processing, I mean, this is a longer conversation, but this is where the medicines are really fantastic too, even with cacao or, you know, any kind of circle work or whatever, without looping on the story, is to get into allowing those things to be, because all of these things are the inner child, right? So it's that simple. It's when, and the shadow, what we call the shadow, is just the inner child stamping its feet saying, look at me, look at me, look at me. Ignoring me, everyone's abandoning me, I've always been abandoned, you know, I'm rejected, and we're like, go away, I don't want to know you. Like, ugh, the shadow.
You're so needy.
So that, whereas if we lean into it instead and pick up that little one like we just didn't, it's okay, sweetie, I'm here. Then the shadow stops screaming, you know, and the inner child only wants to feel safe and loved by us. You know, it's just, the inner child for me is the ego, actually. It's the personality. It blows, but it can, when I say that, people are like, but you think about it, what does the ego do? Say the ego is throwing up judgment, right? So if you, rather than going, oh my God, you're so judgmental, I can't believe it, why are you always so judgmental? If you instead take a moment, close your eyes and call forward your inner child and say, sweetie, why are you judging? What's happening? You'll for sure see, will show you a time in your life where you felt a certain way or something happened, and she in that moment felt judged, or, you know, and so then if you take her, it's all right, darling, you know, and like this, then she's like, oh, okay, well, I can let that go now, I don't really need to, and it softens it, because if we're judgmental, it's only because we're judging ourselves.
Absolutely.
Or anything that we're doing on the outside is only because we're doing that to ourselves, isn't it? So it's all an inside job. It's all an inside job. When you tend to the inside, and that's I guess, you know, we've opened up another conversation in a way, but what would I say to people, you know, is that it is all an inside job, and if you tend to your inner world, then the outer world will change to reflect. That's right. And also healing yourself, taking the time to do your inner work and to get resilient and do all of the things to shift your internal frequency and state is the greatest service you can do for the planet. And why? Because there's a web of light and life in the Andes. They call it the Texi Muyu. And it's like a spider, like in the center of that web, any tiny little vibrational movement that's made ripples out into the entire web, and it affects everything. There is no other. So when you're healing yourself, you are literally healing the world. You're doing a great service.
No, absolutely, I'm all for that. I live in a very big house, and you know,
live in a community.
I live in a community. And when one shifts pretty fast, the rest shift. You know, it's like spreads. It's like, it just takes one person to stand in it first. And then it resonates out. So true.
It's so brave, you know, because this heavy energy, and I blanket it with this term heavy energy because that's really all it is. It's just
Yeah.
whether it's an experience, a trauma, an emotion, or whatever, it has a dense frequency.
Mhm.
So it's just bouncing around, waiting for somebody brave enough to put up their hand and say, "I'll take it, I'll
Yeah,
move it." You know,
absolutely.
so that's the path of the light worker, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which you are
Beautiful
doing
part,
so
yeah.
beautifully and
And
so well.
yeah, I want to know, what does 2023 hold for Gemma? Like, it's all stretching out. Has
I
Kelly
have
pulled your calendar in for you, darling?
actually have I had to buy this big thing. It's over there. I'm looking at it, and I'm like, it's like a Tetris,
Yeah.
you know? I'm like, okay. And the biggest thing, and this is a question that I really want to ask people because I think this is important and one that some of us might be in danger of missing, because the years of 2020 to 2022 gave us very important, powerful lessons. And I think for a lot of people, we shifted and changed the way that we did things in life, um, in a really positive way. And then when things opened up again, there's a possibility that we got jumped straight back on the mouse's wheel
Yeah.
and are forgetting
Yeah.
what we learned from that time.
Yeah.
So this is my challenge in my Tetris puzzle, is to learn how to implement all of the things that I learned through that time and still be able to offer all of the beautiful things that come through me, you know, in a way that's really joyful and effortless and sustainable, for my energy and for what I'm able to give. Because you have to fill your own cup up first, right?
Yeah.
With cacao, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, you really do. Can't give from an empty cup. So it's my year. I have now in this moment, we've just launched into, I smile because it's just so much fun. It's the Sacred Chocolate Shamanic Cacao apprenticeship, and it's a 3 month, it's actually 4 months worth of content that we kind of squash into 3 months, 16 calls. And I love this. It's evolved over time. What I love about this is that people used to ask me, first of all, they would ask me to teach them how to facilitate ceremony. I'd be like, what? Like, how is that even possible? It just comes through. Like, I don't know. And then I got the how. Like, they showed me this is how. Like, you basically, what we're doing is teaching people, not teaching, mentoring, guiding people to commune and connect in a shamanic way with the natural world, and then it starts to arise through them anyway, using some specifics of ritual and ceremony woven in within that. And then people ask me to do it online, and I'm like, are you kidding? Like, how the hell can you do this online? And then thanks 2020, long you came.
Yes, yeah.
My whole calendar for 2 years got cleared, and I was so happy. I was like, I can just let it come through. And then it came like a rocket. They gave me 2 weeks. They said, you've got to launch on June 21st. I had no idea. I'd never put anything online, let alone an online course. And in 2 weeks, I filmed 11 modules, built the whole thing. I don't know how it happened. I had no idea I didn't even know how to work Zoom. Now it's turned into this 3 month extravaganza where I've got my maestros from Peru and amazing guests, shamans, medicine. Amazing.
Amazing.
So you're uniting everybody, people from all around the world.
Yeah.
Through this online,
activation
and ceremony.
Zoom is the laptop is a stargate. It's a portal.
Yeah.
And for me, it's just phenomenal. Like I did this Art of the Altar masterclass a couple of weeks ago. I had 900 people.
Amazing.
Joy.
I nearly died. I couldn't believe it. Like, whoa, this is something. And then you get on the screen and it's like, of course, there's a lot of them, they're on different time zones watching replays, but you get on the screen and there's easily a few hundred, and it's like the feeling of seeing all these beautiful beings from all corners of the planet, all there with a combined intent.
Yeah. Wow. Powerful.
Yeah, it really is incredible. So there's that going on. I'm just about to start, actually, in just under 2 weeks, the art of the altar, the learning this lineage.
Oh, yay. There was one, I nearly got to squeeze in. So, is there a process to this? But then I thought, well, I wonder if there's something going on with that, because that looks like just such a beautiful, like with making the shamanic drum, I imagine it's a similar, process of, fabulous.
And of course, all of when you were asking me about what I do in my life, this is it. This everything, all the tools and everything that I understand and what helps me through is all about this. So I do this within my apprenticeship, but the apprenticeship is really for people too that want to learn to facilitate, whereas there's a lot of people that don't necessarily want, or they're already facilitators and they want to understand the power of this and how this builds resilience in every aspect. So that is coming up in a couple of weeks, and then there'll be a level 2 later in the year, and I've got Peru, and then I have my reset retreats, which are working with medicine, and then I've got another thing that's coming through that I want to do called authentic leadership, which is more like a deep mentorship container where we can really go deep into all aspects of everything. There's a lot going on. You can just if anyone wants to know, just have a look at my Instagram or my website or whatever, and you'll see all of the things there.
We will put all of your links at the bottom of the episode, so everybody can click on those links straight from the podcast that will take through to your Instagram and your website as well.
Thank you. There's a lot of free content there too that people can just enjoy, and you get. I like to give a lot, so even just with the free things, people still receive stuff that they can definitely work with and use and put into practice.
Thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much. That's it's received with so much love.
Thank you, Jen.
Yes. Have a beautiful, beautiful Friday.
Goddess Day. We love Fridays. Day of the Goddess, Freya.
Oh, Freya. Yes, of course. My partner is Swedish, so I know all about those Norse traditions.
Oh, fabulous. Yeah.
Thank you so much both for your amazing work, for everything that you're doing out there. It's so needed. And just blessings and love on this sacred path that you guys are walking. And thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. And love to Kelly.
Oh, yeah, Kelly. Touched. Oh, thank you so much.
Thank you. We'll see you soon.
Joy.